Hello and welcome to Herbalist and Herbs. My name is Chrissakis. Today's video short, herbs to treat coughs and colds. Now normally we would think that this would include flus, but I don't really want to do that because flus include fevers, and the treatment of fevers is really kind of a specific thing. There are 3 stages of fever, and they can be kind of dangerous if you don't know how to treat those 3 different stages. If you can manage a fever, that is as a healer, you can get great benefit to the body. But we're not going to go into that too deeply. I just want to talk about herbs for coughs and colds. So let's start out with one of the basic problems that people have in terms of treating themselves. And that is they often don't do enough of the herbs and or supplements that they're taking, and they don't do them often enough. This is a problem. People often say, well, that didn't work. And then when I asked them how much they did and how often, it was really minimal. Try to remember that the germs are in your body trying to multiply and take over. And it's the job of your immune system and or the herbs and supplements to help that not happen. Now herbs generally have a half-life of about 2 to 3 hours, and that's why you have to dose pretty regularly. So when I tell people to take herbs and or supplements for coughs and colds, and this would be true of any type of acute infection or inflammation that you were treating, you have to treat often and with enough amount of what you're giving the person. So frequency could be 5-6 times a day, and then amounts will vary, and of course the formulas will vary according to what the problem is. But let's talk a little bit more about herbs. The general consensus is they're not really sure that they actually are antibacterial or antiviral, but that they kick the immune system up so it becomes more active and destroys the pathogens. Either way, they work. They have a long history of use, and they have good methods of application that now are even simpler than ever, meaning that you can get herbs in capsule forms as concentrates or as tinctures, both of which make things much easier to use than making teas. So generally, I try to give things that are easy for people to work with and take, and those are the 2 simplest methods of getting things across. But again, taking things often enough and enough of them at each dose. Alright, so let's go into a few of the herbs. Echinacea is obviously a very popular idea, and it works. The interesting thing about echinacea is that short term, when you're treating a cold or infection, you're doing high dose. But if you want to use it, you can use it as a tonic to the lungs, long term in low dose. Its original use was known as Kansas snake root because it helps with any kind of poisoning that could be in terms of a bite. That could be a snake bite or a spider bite, applied either locally or taken systemically in high dosages. Now, echinacea kicks up macrophages, this is the theory, and gets them more active and to engulf. They're your frontline grunt cells to kill the pathogens that have entered your body. Anyway, it's got a long history of use. I like to use just the root. I don't like to use the above ground portion. It's an okay application of the plant, but the root is much stronger and you get much more of a pronounced effect from it. Another really good herb that's not well known is osha. And osha is probably a real immunostimulant. And because of that, you've got to be a little more judicious about its use. It tends to be very good for the initial treatments of the onset of cold, or if you're going to use it in combination with other herbs that they tone down kind of that little more aggressive effect, but it's an excellent herb to treat the initial stages of cold and really kick up the lungs and kick up the immune system. It's also good as an analgesic, as a gargle for sore throat. Again, it's got a long history of use, as all of the herbs that I'm going to talk about do. Another one that's not particularly well known is called lomatium. Again, another excellent herb, antiviral, antibacterial, and a lot of these herbs, again, are also antimicrobials, which means you can use them topically on any kind of infection, and they kill germs, bacteria. Anyway, back to lomatium. Lomatium really got its fame in the 1800s when the Spanish flu took effect. It killed so many people. The areas that actually applied lomatium that is in the Southwest saved their lives. So it really has a pronounced effect. It has a long history of use in both bacterial and viral pneumonia. So it's not a wimpy herb, and many of these herbs are not wimpy. They actually have a pronounced effect on our body. And to go again into these idea of treatment herbs, which is what these are, they're for short-term use. Generally, echinacea is a real exception, and it's at low dose. But at these dosage levels, if you use the plants for too long, they tend to make people tired because it costs energy to get the body to fight. So if you're using them for too long, they can make you a little tired. That's one of the contraindications. But again, if you're dealing with an infection and an acute inflammation, you want to keep it short-term, hopefully, and bring it down as quickly as possible. And again, if you dose properly with the things I'm telling you and you take them often enough, either you won't get the cold, or if you get it, you'll minimize its effects, and it won't be so much cleanup for the body, because one of the things that most people don't realize is the body also has to repair after being sick. It has to repair the tissue that's been damaged. Okay, let's go into another great herb for treating coughs and colds, and that is licorice. Licorice, once again, actually tastes good, which is unusual in the world of herbs. And you use it in a lot of formulas, especially if you're going to treat kids, to get them to actually take stuff. But for treating coughs and colds, it's great. It's a demulcent. It soothes abraded tissue. It'll heal that tissue that's been damaged. It supports the immune system. It's an adrenal support as well. It's an antitussive in that it stops and soothes coughing. I mean, licorice has volumes of information on it. It is a major adaptogenic herb, meaning that it really feeds the body in a big way. So I use it a lot in the treatment of coughs and colds, as well as the other herbs that I just mentioned. Another great herb, which is kind of local to me, is called grindelia. And grindelia is a kind of moistening antitussive. It helps stop coughing, and it moistens tissue and helps, again, if there's a very productive cough, that's one of the things that I use specifically. Another thing that's very good to use is thyme. That's the same thyme you would use on your chicken or your fish, thyme vulgaris. And lemon thyme is fine as well. This, again, is a great antitussive. It's moistening to the lungs in case there's dryness. And it's great even as an essential oil in a bath to help fight colds. Now, there's a lot more things you can do, and there's a lot of things you can take along with herbs, but they are the primary focus of when I treat acute inflammatory infections like a cold or a flu. And that they act as some of the basic armamentarium that I apply to that. If you want to know more about things that relate to health, longevity, and the treatment of certain disorders, please go to my website, herbalistandherbs.com. Thanks for taking the time to watch the video.